So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life.
Charlie Kirk took issue with this depiction of his organization. Kirk maintains that Turning Point USA is not affiliated with anti-Semitism or white supremacist. In a strongly worded tweet, the 28-year-old stated,
with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis. But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it.
They have nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that...
But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
Brace yourself. Daytime TV just lit a match and tossed it straight into the culture war. On a recent episode of The View Eyes, the host didn't just take a jab at Turning Point USA. They launched a full-on attack that blindsided over 5,000 young attendees. We're talking teenagers, high school students, college kids who flew in from across the country on their own dime, just to hear speakers talk about politics, values, and the future. But instead of respect, they got ridiculed on national television. What was meant to be a celebration of youth activism turned into a media hit job. Critics are now accusing the show of crossing the line, from opinion to outright character assassination. The question everyone's asking, when did showing up to listen become a reason to get publicly shamed? The backlash is fierce, and this firestorm is just getting started.
They have nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement? I think, Charlie, you could use the money, and your students definitely could too.
Then came the moment that detonated the controversy. Live on air, The View Eyes dropped a bombshell, suggesting that students attending the Turning Point USA event were somehow linked to neo-Nazis. This wasn't a slip-up. This was a televised explosion that sent shockwaves across the country. Charlie Kirk, the unapologetic firebrand behind TPUSA, didn't hold back. He wasn't just defending himself, he was outraged on behalf of thousands of young people, most under 21, now branded with a lie they never signed up for. In his words, these students were smeared, and the stain wasn't on him. It was on them. All because someone at ABC decided to toss out a reckless accusation like it was gossip, not national news. And just when the outrage meter was maxed out, Sunny Hostin poured gasoline on the fire. Seated smugly at the talk show table, she didn't stop at political jabs. No, she aimed straight at the heart of Trump's voter base, white women without college degrees. Her implication that lacking a diploma meant lacking intellect. The subtext wasn't subtle, it was snide, smug, and downright offensive. The fallout was immediate. Viewers weren't just angry, they were personally insulted. Because let's be clear, college isn't the only measure of intelligence. And when a daytime TV host uses her platform to mock millions of Americans for their education level, it stops being commentary. It becomes contempt. The line wasn't just crossed, it was obliterated.
Charlie Kirk took issue with this depiction of his organization. Kirk maintains that Turning Point USA is not affiliated with anti-Semitism or white supremacist. In a strongly worded tweet, the 28-year-old stated, "Talking to lawyers, many think we have a strong case. You cannot smear minors as and get away with it. It impacts them for the rest of their life. Hashtag sue the View." That's when TPUSA went all in. The organization changed its profile pic on Twitter to hashtag sue the View, posted a number of tweets condemning The View and demanding an apology.
There she was, sipping coffee in a $1 million studio, casually mocking everyday Americans as uneducated. But that didn't come off as bold, it came off as smug. And Charlie Kirk? He saw the opening and went in hard. To him, it was classic elitist hypocrisy. a law degree host on national TV throwing shade at people who didn't go to college, people who work, raise families, pay taxes, and vote. If you were one of them watching at home, it didn't feel like debate. It felt like you were being told your voice didn't count. And that changed everything. But Kirk didn't show up for a face-off on the show, no walk-on, no table fight. Instead, he dropped a polished response video that hit like a punch. Tight edits, intense music, powerful delivery. This wasn't a rant, it was a statement, and it sent shockwaves far beyond the studio.
Now we begin with a shocking apology just a short time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point USA. A war of words broke out after the conservative group was rallying the next generation of voters at its youth summit in Tampa, Florida this weekend. And the liberal panel just couldn't help themselves. The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View suggested that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside the event.
It didn't feel like a rebuttal. It felt like a digital ambush wrapped in a political campaign ad and set loose at full speed. Every second of Charlie Kirk's video was engineered to humiliate Sunny Hostin. Her words weren't just challenged, they were torched and fed straight into the content machine. And the timing? Ruthless. Hours after The View Eyes aired, Kirk's video was already setting the internet on fire. Twitter exploded. YouTube reactors were piling on. TikTok clips turned her sound bites into 15-second knockout edits. While Sunny was still under the studio lights, Kirk had hijacked the narrative from miles away. This wasn't debate. It was digital warfare, and he played to win. No fact-checking, no balance, just speed, spectacle, and total algorithm domination. And the worst part for The View? He didn't just clap back. He made her look like she lost the fight without ever stepping into the ring.
I think it's important that every single person that attended that turning point, every Republican speak up against these, because against the Nazi flags that were waved.
Turning Point conference, were in the front of out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs and the swastika.
This was never really about who's right. It was about who looked like they had the upper hand. And the moment Kirk's video dropped, Sunny Hostin didn't look like the composed, sharp legal analyst we usually see. Something changed. Her voice, less steady. Her smile, suddenly strained. Her posture, tense. Viewers picked up on it fast, and they weren't kind. The internet doesn't care about context. It doesn't wait for nuance. It cares about the hit and how you handle it. And Sunny looked shaken. No meltdowns, no shouting. This wasn't Real Housewives drama. It was quieter. And worse, the kind of unraveling where the cracks start to show and there's no hiding them. Her eyes flicked to the teleprompter like it was a lifeline. Her delivery wobbled. Her face said what her words didn't. What just happened? And that's what the internet pounced on. Not the debate, not the substance, but the look. Slowed down clips of her blinking too fast, fidgeting, looking lost. The conversation shifted from politics to pure perception. And the perception was brutal. She didn't just lose the argument, she lost the room.
On Monday, we talked about the fact that there were openly neo-demonstrators outside the Florida Student Action Summit of the Turning Point USA group. We want to make clear that these demonstrators were gathered outside the event and that they were not invited or endorsed by Turning Point USA. A Turning Point USA spokesman said the group, quote, 100% condemns those ideologies, and said Turning Point USA security tried to remove the neo-Nazis from the area but could not because they were on public property. Also, Turning Point USA wanted us to clarify that this was a Turning Point USA summit and not a Republican Party event. So we apologize for anything we said that may have been unclear on these points.
Charlie Kirk didn't just challenge Sunny Hostin, he cracked her whole on-air persona. The confident, composed host started to slip, and the internet smelled blood. Blinking clips, shaky tones, darting eyes. Her unraveling became the real headline. Then, things turned serious. After The View Eyes suggested TPUSA students were linked to neo-Nazis, Turning Point didn't just complain. They lawyered up. A cease and desist landed on the show's doorstep. No soft warning, a full-blown legal threat. The message? You don't smear 5,000 young people and walk away clean, especially not kids who spent their own money, traveled miles, and just wanted to be part of something bigger. Now, it wasn't just a PR mess, it was a legal storm.
Welcome back. You know, in Monday's conversation about Turning Point USA, I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside. And I don't like it when people make assumptions about me. And it's not any better when I make assumptions about other people, which I did. So, my bad. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, the state, the U.S.
Over the weekend, Turning Point USA hosted a riveting event in Tampa, Florida called the Student Action Summit. Outside of the event were individuals waving flags and engaged in other activities. Well, on Monday's show, members of The View made a few comments about it.
The conservative group Turning Point USA has condemned the group of neo and said they have nothing to do with the organization.
Yeah, but where was DeSantis is what I want to know.
But you let them in.
President, open your
You
mouth
let
there.
them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you are complicit.
Despite everything, those students still showed up. Teenagers and college kids from every corner of the country made the trip on their own time, their own dime, to attend this conservative summit. No riots, no hate symbols, no chaos, just thousands of young people eager to listen, to learn, and to be part of something bigger. But instead of being respected for their commitment, they were thrown into the same bucket as a fringe group that wasn't even allowed inside. Charlie Kirk didn't mince words. Those extremists? Not invited. TPUSA tried to get them removed, but since they were on public property, their hands were tied. Didn't matter. The View still painted everyone with the same brush. And that false image, it stuck. Kirk saw it for what it was. Not a misunderstanding. A targeted smear. And he made sure the world knew it.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. Or
if the media thought they could toss out wild accusations and just move on, they were dead wrong. Here's the kicker: Sunny Hostin wasn't caught off guard. No surprise guest, no on-set meltdown, no chaotic live argument. It was just her, the camera, and Charlie Kirk's viral video echoing everywhere online. Kirk didn't have to yell or show up in person. His razor-sharp, perfectly edited words landed harder than any face-to-face showdown could, while The View stuck to their usual script. Panel chatter, a few punches, then moving on. Kirk went all in. He tore her ideology apart like it owed him money, mocked her elitism, exposed her as totally out of touch with everyday Americans, and he did it without ever stepping foot on the set.
Your achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sunny?
yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's fine, I guess.
The video didn't just challenge her views, it turned Sunny Hostin into the face of everything conservatives love to hate: media privilege, academic arrogance, and disdain for working-class Americans. The reaction? Immediate and brutal. The clip didn't just trend, it took over every feed. Comments flooded in, reaction channels exploded. People weren't just watching Hostin, they were watching her writhe, and they relished every second. The worst? She couldn't strike back. Not really, because once the internet turns you into a symbol, or worse, a meme, you stop being a person. You become a target. And that's exactly what happened to Sunny. Headlines screamed with mocking glee. Charlie Kirk ends daytime delusion, and Sunny Hostin slammed by reality. Timelines clogged with savage takes. Subreddits turned into feeding frenzies. TikTok creators zoomed in on every twitch. Blinks, shifts, tight smiles, looped, remixed, and shared endlessly. Meanwhile, back at The View, the vibe changed. The energy dropped, conversations stalled. Even the audience was left wondering when to cheer and when to cringe.
The point I'll say is this, is Sonny, do you guys thought that abortion was going to be this like quasi-zealot religious issue? I'm pro-life. If people in the audience aren't, that's fine. What I'm saying though, what gives me promise, and I think we can all agree on this, is that there are other issues that should animate and drive our politics other than this very divisive one. And I was really encouraged by that, Megan. Very encouraged, because the media was forcing this as an up or down vote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue. And it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things matter more.
Sunny Hostin, once the unshakable legal eagle, suddenly looked like she was quietly falling apart on live TV. No shouting, no outbursts, just subtle cracks in her composure that everyone online noticed and mercilessly replayed. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk wasn't even in the building. He was somewhere else, probably popping champagne as his viral video shredded her on every platform imaginable. He didn't need a live showdown. His meticulously crafted digital takedown spoke louder than any face-to-face confrontation could. Kirk wasn't just attacking her words, he demolished the whole polished image she represented. Law degrees, media privilege, elite authority. Then he dropped another video, this time a full-blown cinematic assault. Dramatic music, flashy edits, slow zooms on every flicker of her discomfort, painting her as completely out of touch with everyday Americans. The clip exploded. It wasn't just watched, it spawned reaction videos, TikTok remixes, dance memes, and endless loops of every blink, twitch, and forced smile. She didn't scream or lose her temper. Her meltdown was silent, real, and that made it far worse. The internet pounced on that look the moment she wasn't ready and turned it into a viral feeding frenzy. Eventually, Sunny issued a quiet apology slipped into the next broadcast, admitting she judged those students unfairly. But by then, it was too late. The internet had already crowned it a cultural knockout. Conservative blogs hailed it as a major win. Reaction channels spun it into endless content gold. TikTokers turned her facial expressions into memes. One remix even layered her blinking over dubstep beats. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk's supporters celebrated like they'd won the Super Bowl. T-shirts with her reaction face appeared online. Sunny came armed with legal insight and moral clarity, but Kirk showed up with memes and digital firepower. In 2025, media wars aren't won with facts or calm debate. They're won with viral moments that capture attention and dominate feeds. Kirk treated her like a hashtag, stripped away nuance, and blasted her into the algorithm with ruthless precision. It worked, and while Sunny struggled to keep control of her daytime show, the internet tore her apart, dissecting every awkward glance, every pause, every forced smile. This wasn't a battle of ideas anymore. It was survival in the digital arena. And the crowd? They were hungry for blood. Entire YouTube channels tore apart Sunny's segment frame by frame like a political autopsy. No one cared about what she said anymore. It was all about how rattled she looked. That's the harsh reality today. Image rules everything. Flinch on camera and you don't just lose the argument, you become the argument. And Sunny flinched hard. Charlie Kirk didn't need a debate stage or to show up on set. He pulled off a digital drone strike, surgical, merciless, and devastating, targeting her reputation. The image she'd built over years as the calm, smart, composed, liberal voice, shattered on camera, then blasted into endless TikTok loops with clown music. Facts don't win here, reactions do. Her meltdown wasn't just a one-off clip anymore. It became a viral template, a meme factory, a 5-second loop of blinking and tight smiles that erased her credibility in real time. The damage was done. The internet never forgets. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, it did. The moment ignited an outrage buffet for every reaction creator out there. TikTokers slapped circus music on her blinks, YouTubers spun deep dives, and meme pages turned her every twitch into comedy gold. Even folks who never saw the original clip felt like they did because it blew up so huge. Meanwhile, Kirk rode the wave. No need to respond. His fans did the heavy lifting, remixing, reposting, stitching, while The View scrambled with legal clarifications trying to fix a firestorm that had already gone nuclear. Sure, they tried explaining that Turning Point USA never invited the Neo, and security tried to remove them, but public property rules kept the protesters in place. The internet doesn't do context or retractions, it only remembers impact. And Sunny's unraveling, locked in the meme archives forever. The internet doesn't reward careful reasoning, it rewards chaos. When Charlie Kirk dropped his response, it wasn't crafted for fact-checkers or policy wonks. It was built to explode online. No policy papers, just viral-ready sound bites, slick visuals, and a punchy delivery that made people stop scrolling. The View? They showed up thinking it was still 2015, sipping lattes, tossing around polished opinions, and walking away unscathed. Sunny's moment wasn't loud or chaotic. It was worse. It was defeat written all over her face. And on the internet, looking rattled is a death sentence. You could see it in her eyes. The internet? They screenshotted every frame. In a lightning-fast digital world, Sunny brought a textbook to a fistfight, and Charlie Kirk made sure she never forgot it. And here's what really broke the whole thing wide open. It wasn't just Sunny's moment that got wrecked. It shattered The View itself. The show, famous for handling scandals, walkouts, and chaos-like prose, suddenly looked exposed, fragile, and utterly unprepared for the new rules of the game. This wasn't just a controversy, this was a full-on narrative siege. Charlie Kirk didn't just attack Sunny's words, he invaded her space, flipped her authority inside out, and handed it to the internet to tear apart. The cameras caught it all, the subtle cracks in her voice, the darting eyes, the shifting posture. Watching her realize live on air that control was slipping away was like a slow-motion meltdown. And the saddest part? She tried. You could see her pushing to stay composed, but her face betrayed her. The blinking, the stiffness, the forced smile. No comeback, no rebuttal, just the crushing weight of a million pixels turning her discomfort into content. She didn't scream or storm off, but her composure cracked, and that's all the internet needed. She walked into a talk show. Charlie Kirk turned it into a digital battlefield, and the cameras never blinked, but she did. That blink? Legendary. Sunny Hostin's once solid reputation, sharp, respected, unshakable, was shredded into endless reaction clips and sarcastic remixes. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk? He was already moving on. From his digital throne, he watched as Sunny's segment became meme gold for creators, trolls, and even clueless influencers chasing clicks. Sunny might bounce back on traditional TV, where audiences forgive more easily. But on the internet, redemption arcs don't exist. The internet remembers the worst frame, the awkward pause, the blink that screamed, "I wasn't ready." That's what gets saved, stitched, and reposted, etched forever in digital culture. This fight? It was never just conservative versus liberal. It was old media versus new media, and new media came armed with flamethrowers.